Hey guys, welcome back. We're gonna do a continuation, a part two of the brain implants for everyone. America's biggest obstacle to the WEF. This part two is gonna specifically cover how ESG will affect you, how ESG is going to affect farmers, and possible pushback that you can do to ESG. This is
E-
through Facts
ESG
Matter.
is what?
That is
ESG.
environmental, social, and governance. So
Eh,
this is the so instead of a credit score, what ESG is think of your credit score. Throw it away. Okay. What you how you spend money now matters in the framework of environmental social governance. Now, it is not active in this country, but it is in China. But who does work this in this country? Big companies. So big corporations have an ESG score. They can't even get bank loans if their ESG score isn't correct. To give you an idea, it's so political it becomes insane because to give you an idea, ExxonMobil, would you think they have a high or a low ESG score?
they're oil. If the liberals are doing it, I think it'd be low.
Okay, Tesla, high
It'd
or
be
low?
high. High. They're environmentally correct.
Flip it,
Completely backwards. Yeah.
flip it.
Politics. Yeah.
Yep, ExxonMobil has got like a AAA rating in ESG.
Hmm.
They're one of the top 500, or you would classify them in the Fortune 500 of ESG score companies.
They must be greasing
Tesla
some wheels
Tesla
with all
got
that
kicked
oil.
out of the ESG S&P 500,
Mm.
the version of the S&P 500 for
Hmm.
ESG
Yep.
because of Twitter.
Uh, uh, when I was a kid, I used to have this pin on where it said "Question Authority."
Right.
When I was a Vietnam era, I was raised when that war was going on through high school and junior high and such, and into the Marine Corps as well. But is we're pretty thoughtful. I mean, even as liberal as some of the people coming out of that age were, but to question authority, not just because they tell you what to do, but is it right or is it
Right.
good? But you have to have a foundation to base that judgment off of, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem is they're eroding that foundation. Because I guarantee you that ExxonMobil is got some friends in high places that
Oh
they're
yeah,
greasing
of
palms with,
course they
and
do.
so their
They're
rating's
part
going to
of the
be
World
great.
Economic Forum, which is
Yeah,
hilarious because it's anti-oil, but big oil's one of the big contributors.
is Big
So
Tobacco on there?
of course they are.
Sure.
Of course they are.
Oh yeah, they got a tax stamp. They're throwing money to the government too.
Monsanto is in there.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it's everybody. It's all your
Mm.
Saudi, your Saudi family. It's
Mm.
it's so corrupt. So let's go ahead and see what this guy is going to say about the next big
ESGs.
couple components of ESG.
From sort of a more practical perspective, let's say you own a small window installation company in Ohio, or you're a farmer in Minnesota, or you own a deli in New York. How how will this ESG agenda affect you if you are just a small business owner?
Sure. Well, there's two ways that would affect you. The one is specifically, so for example, one of the things that the Biden administration has done to enforce ESG in the United States, the Securities Exchange Commission is now requiring that all listed companies report their CO2 emissions, and not only of their own company, but of their customers and their suppliers. Well, if you are Nestle, you have several 100,000 farmers that supply you with food for your products. So now all of these farmers are going to have to produce audited statements annually of their CO2 emissions, as well as their plans to reduce them. This is not something that your average farmer is able to afford. The second way that this movement affects people is what they pay. So we are all paying huge increases for fuel and for food because of the WEF and the ESG's war on the fossil fuel industry. So we've created an artificial shortage. It's not that there's any shortage of gasoline or natural gas in the world. It's that we've created an artificial shortage on extracting and refining because of this movement. It's driven prices through the roof, and it's gone through the entire economy. It affects manufacturing, transportation. Farmers rely on diesel fuel They also rely on fertilizer. More than 3 billion people on this earth rely on synthetic fertilizer for food. That's a derivative of natural gas. So this is a period in the last couple of years when the effects of these policies and this agenda have hit home for everyone.
Wow. So is it the case that, let's say you're a farmer and you, let's say, grow potatoes in Idaho that you then want to sell to a big corporation like, let's say, McDonald's, right? And so since McDonald's is publicly traded, they need to now, with this new SEC regulation, have the CO2 numbers for not only themselves, but all their different partners, all the different businesses that they do business with. Meaning that if you're a farmer who sells to McDonald's, even though you want nothing to do with this agenda, now you are being forced to do this reporting. Otherwise, you lose one of your biggest clients, McDonald's.
Couldn't afford
Is that
to do it.
sort of how it works?
That's correct. And what we're seeing
but the
is
big corporations,
that, the large corporate farms don't have so much of a
Exactly.
problem with this. They can
It'll
afford to do
consolidate
this, but the small
all down
family
to a
farms are
handful
really
of companies.
struggling. At the same time, we're seeing investment funds
ADM.
buy up farmland throughout the United States. And who is the biggest owner of farmland in the United States today? It's Bill Gates through a number of his shell companies and other organizations.
God,
so
I hate that guy.
it looks like a concerted effort to put family farmers out of business. And as
been
you
going on for a
all know
while.
as well, there's all sorts of legislation coming out in the Netherlands to really crack down on animal farming and try to force cattle farmers out of business. We saw Sri Lanka try to
Bunkerville,
ban
Nevada.
synthetic fertilizers, and we saw the devastating effect that it
Exactly.
had on those people.
Also up in Oregon.
Kevin, let me ask you,
Yeah,
there seems to be a pushback
Harney
against
County.
ESG as more people are sort of waking up to what it actually is. Your documentary came out, educated a lot of people. There was a great interview on Joe Rogan that went viral, that educated a lot of people on it. And more states are now starting to actually fight back against corporations and funds that have ESG as one of their components. But within the World Economic Forum, are they actually taking that criticism to heart? Are they maybe softening some of their pushes, or are they getting even more aggressive and trying to push things through before, let's say, more states fight back?
The strategy this year seems to be doubling down to try to, the theme of this year's WEF is cooperation in a fragmented world. And I think what that means is trying to get everybody back on board with this agenda and regroup. But there is no effort whatsoever to back off on these policies. In fact, they've identified climate change as the #1 threat to the Earth over the next 10 years. And so what they're trying to do is get everybody to really double down on taking out the fossil fuel industry and moving towards wind and solar.
Well, and this ESG agenda is sort of the vehicle that they're using to make that happen.
Very much so. Now, it'll be interesting because, as you said, there is a tremendous amount of pushback against ESG. They say that this is the new version of CRT, that people, suddenly have learned what it is. They don't like it, and they're rebelling against it. And one of the themes of the WEF is why is there all this dissent? We must stop this dissent. That all these
Has the
different opinions in the
caviar.
world. We don't like this. ESG is not going away. There's too many vested interests in it, but I could see in 2023 there being a rebranding of it. And just like the WEF suddenly said,
Right.
oh, the Great Reset is nothing that we ever mentioned, even though they mentioned it 2 years ago. That was one of their themes. I think we may see people saying ESG is
Hillary
we're
pushing
not
the
doing that
button
anymore. But I think it's just going to be a rebranding of the same policies.
Now, if you'd like to check out Kevin's awesome documentary, The Shadow State, which goes much
All right, so there we go.
Interesting. The banks and the insurance companies, they started going after the firearms companies, and they wouldn't give them loans.
Right.
And as there was talking earlier about the credit cards and such, and they wouldn't give them loans, and the insurance companies would stop giving them insurance. They had to really start outsourcing because they couldn't get money or get insurance, and because it wasn't politically acceptable.
Right.
And that's where this ESG movement type of thing, huge authority there, and then but the government pushing it through business, and you just think. I mean, how many rich liberals are there who, filthy rich, billionaire, multi-billionaires are there? There's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot. And they want to preach their religion, if you will, of whatever it is that they're hung up on to us, with a bulldozer and open wide because we're going to cram it down your throat. And what happens is we suffer by it. You've probably seen it down your way too, Mac. Is a lot of solar going on. I mean, there's solar like mad.
Yeah.
Well, that's because there's a lot of rebates right from the government, a lot of tax breaks. So what's happened? They're taking our tax dollars, paying for the solar because the solar in some areas works, but some areas it doesn't work.
Right.
And I've seen people get money for putting up a wind turbine. The big white props
That's
in the air,
insane.
and they don't have any wind.
Right.
And, I mean, it doesn't put out enough to pay for the machine.
Like the
but
solar
they get a
tech
tax
is,
mark.
and the solar tech's really cool. I am from the generation where I do appreciate the electric cars, like the innovation that Tesla.
Yeah, if they
Elon
work,
Musk-
fine.
Oh, they were good.
Yeah. Oh, they're fast. They're quiet.
And I mean, his lowest mileage Tesla is like 280 miles on a charge, which that's a commuter car, right? That's a to work and back commuter car. If you're long hauling all the time, there's lots of charging stations, sure, whatever. It may be for you, it may not be for you. 30 minutes to 80%. They're fast now.
Not on a 1-ton dually quad cab.
What do you mean?
Truck.
Tesla doesn't have a truck yet, and
he made one.
It's not out yet. You're thinking?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's not out. It was that crazy looking thing. It was sleek.
I want one.
Yeah,
I want
it was looking pretty good. Bulletproof
uh,
doors and windows or whatever. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, right. No, that will even charge because the way the batteries charge, they don't charge. They're not like a gas tank, right? Low to fill. It's all of them, and they all fill at the same time, regardless. So you could have 1,000 packs. It'll charge in 30 minutes up to 80%. The last 20% slows down a bunch, but a lot of that has to do with safety of the batteries. But those are also on 480 charging systems.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. They're special, and Tesla owns them all. So the 100,000 charging stations in the country.
Yeah, they're going up here.
That you can get them in your house too. You can purchase one for your house if you own a Tesla. Not that I'm just saying everybody go out and get a Tesla, but the tech is cool, right? Solar, I honestly, so I'm a prepper. There's no really disguising that there. And from the prepper's point of view, I like solar because the terrifying power that even my local power company has is unimaginable. But then there's states like California that you put up solar because you think that that's what you should be doing, right? You're a Californian.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to charge you just to have solar, not to pay to put it up, but just to put, like, they've removed any incentives of like getting any real buybacks. Though there's some areas that you have buybacks, and then there's certain rules of like you can't buy back during, you can't sell during peak, and you can't control. And they do everything, and it's like 10 cents.
How about if you wear a COVID protection mask everywhere you go outside? Will they give you a discount then?
Maybe.
I mean, does that qualify?
I wouldn't doubt it.
It should.
But, like I look at
California.
The electric, the solar. I look at it, is it economically viable for the individual? Well, we don't know, right? Every individual is different. Some
Depends on where you live.
Right. And now I get a lot of clouds here. It's Georgia. It rains, at least twice a week.
Rainy nights in Georgia. Yeah.
And is solar worth it? If you're in a clearing, meaning like you've cleared the majority of the trees, you have a big enough property to clear the majority of the shade that would cover the panels. Actually,
and any balloons from China that come by, so it doesn't block the sun.
No, balloons, they're not from China. It's the CIA trying to convince us to go to war.
Checking.
Yeah, hey, look. Anytime something flies into this country, just, hey, look, this happened, guys. Oh, look, China did it. Everybody, look. You know that's the fucking CIA.
Yeah.
Like, this shit's wild.
They let it. Yeah.
But I look at it as, the tech is really cool because it's non-invasive tech. Now, here's the deal with the rebates. This is where it gets really weird, because I've done a good deal of research on this. Did you know that, and I'm going to use this in a jest of sorts. Did you know you get a rebate for buying a oil car, a gas car, or an ICE vehicle, traditional auto? Oh, wait, you don't get a rebate. There's no tax credit for you. Do you know who gets it? It
No, who gets
exists.
it?
Ford, GM, they get it for every one you buy. But for whatever reason, electric vehicles don't get that rebate. They give it to the customer. So Tesla doesn't get the rebate. You would get it if you qualify, which means you also have to have enough money, because it's a tax rebate. You have to make enough money to get the rebate. So it also doesn't work for everybody. But in so the rebates they give these cars are actually kind of scammy from the government.
Well, aren't they gonna charge you on your taxes for getting that money for that rebate? And then that rebate money is actually probably making it possible for you to be able to buy one of those cars. So then that money goes to that car manufacturer anyways, correct?
Yeah. Yes and no. Because the argument you would say is yes, but the problem is if you can liquidate that rebate, right? Let's say you make $60,000 a year and you buy a $50,000 Tesla. Bad idea. Financially, not a good idea for you, right? You probably shouldn't be buying a $50,000 car, period. But let's say you make $50,000, $60,000 a year, you buy a $50,000 Tesla. You don't pay enough in taxes to get the $7,000 rebate. You won't get it. You won't you'll qualify for some of it, right? You know, it'll write it off on, maybe $600 or $1,000.
I see. Yeah.
And that's the problem. So in reality,
so the more you make, the more of the rebate you can get up to a point.
Correct. And a lot of people do is that they'll shell their car.
Damn 1%ers.
Well, they'll shell their company into a business. So, like, say you own your own construction business.
Yeah.
You make a lot more money, a ton of money. Not you necessarily personally, but your gross margin is through the fucking roof. Well, if you bought a Tesla, you would get the full tax rebate, no questions asked. It's all there for the rebate. And you write it off as a business car, and then after 2 or 3 years, you deed the car to yourself. And so that's how a lot of people that make that higher level of income, how they do it. But it's funny because, see, there's only one company that's doing anything in the electric space. You got Ford and GM whacking off to, hopes and dreams, and they're only doing it and putting money into it, not to hurt Elon. No, it's to get their ESG score. They're just doing it as a checkbox. But then all of Ford and GM's vehicles qualify for the rebate. Get this, only half of Tesla's do.
Well, Elon speaks his mind.
Yeah. Well, he pissed off Biden, and Biden changed a couple rules, and all of a sudden, half of Tesla's vehicles didn't. And so what he did is instead, so he's like, well, if you're not going to give us the rebate, and it was specifically for the Model Y because it wasn't big enough to be considered an SUV. So what he did is he's building a new factory, one of his gigafactories in Mexico. And he's going to slash his price. He already slashed his prices by 20-30% on all of his vehicles across the board. And he's like, compete.
Yeah. Oh, that ought to tick Biden off. I mean, create jobs in Mexico.
Right. The Mexicans will stay there.
Yeah. His future voters aren't coming across the border. And
there's a reason why, because it's a North American act. So he's got a giant gigafactory in Texas. He's got a giant one in Fremont, California. He's got one in Berlin. He's got one in Shanghai, and he's going to get one in Mexico. But I think he's trying to consolidate more here towards the U.S. But he needed him in the Eastern China for the Chinese market, right?
Right.
He doesn't want to ship cars, so he wants to build them where they're going to be sold. and then Burr, I think it's Berlin. He is his factory. Yeah, I believe it's Berlin, and that's his European facility. That's where the cars get built for the European stuff, it's a good business model. I think it's a cool company. But what's funny is that the ESG, on that whole note, doesn't actually, is really not charging anything like the whole like what's your carbon output. That's dangerous because if your metric is what company are you hiring to do like to subservice you? Are you going all the way down to the ground level at the very bottom? Is that where we're going with it? Where it's what random employee 7 company chains down and how much is his carbon footprint?
Mhm.
Or is it just the next company over? And then when you do this, it's an impossible thing to track.
You know, there's a gal
For a small business, that is.
there's a gal I know. She's from Hungary or one of the former communist controlled under the USSR when before the wall came down and the USSR collapsed. And then came to Washington D.C. But she was working for a private company, if you will, and what happened is she was telling me the story that it was snowing really hard, the blizzard, the buses weren't running because they had to count on public transportation and all, and they were living. I mean, the families were all piled into apartments, and she said so she had to walk to work. It took her like 3 or 4 hours in the snow to walk to work, but she was afraid if she didn't go to work and didn't show up, that they would fire her, and if they fire her because all the businesses are really controlled by the government, is then she wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere because that would follow her around every business that she went to. And
Right.
of course she walked all the way to work and it was closed, but she had no way of knowing. And so then she had to walk all the way back home. And that's what happens is when the government, through whatever means it uses, some type of coercion, gets private business to do their dirty work, which is what's happening here in America.
Right.
And I mean, it's very dangerous. And consolidated authority and power is not good for your freedom. It's
Right.
just not good for it. And that's what's happening within our country. It's happening within our news media. Who on earth, who's watching this right now, listening to us, who trusts what the news media says?
Right.
I mean, you pick the station. You can pick Fox. You can pick any of CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever, CNN, whatever. Pick it. Who trusts the major media and what they're saying? And I would say the vast majority of people don't.
If they're listening to us,
Yeah, if they're listening to us, they don't. That's true. Okay, both of you guys are listening to us, right?
All two of you.
Don't if you have the ability to sway a politician in your state government, and you do in your state government, maybe California you don't so much, but in most of especially the smaller states, is motivate them, help them, and educate them on what's going on with these ESGs and such, and get your state government to do what they're, matter of fact, elected to do, and that's to defend the state's rights, your rights through the state, and because that your state government is the firewall between your freedom and the federal government.
Right.
And your state government has got to be enabled and empowered and motivated by you to stand up against centralized federal control on everything. And that can stop some of these big things that are going on. I mean, look at South Dakota with their governor. I mean, she's one tough cookie, and she stands up to the federal government all the time. She did it on the COVID things, and she's done it on illegal immigration and such, and on the like Catholic charities dropping off illegal immigrants in the state. And matter of fact, what she did is she put out a mandate that anybody who's bringing illegal aliens into the state, like sanctuary cities or whatever they're putting them up, that all their funding is cut and all their permits are stopped to be able to licenses and such in the state of South Dakota. South Dakota. And so your state government has a huge amount of authority and power to be able to do this type of stuff. And you can motivate them by contacting them and organizing with your friends and other people to educate them and just to stand up against it. Because if not, you're going to turn around and we've lost so much freedom in the last 20, 30 years. It's crazy. And COVID was a trial balloon for that. That's what will the American people take. And we listen on the video and they're talking about how many more shots they're going to give, and the Pfizer's coming out with this and you're going to need multiple shots. And it's like, yeah, because they're making billions of dollars on every level of every time they give a round of shots. Right. And only we can stand up and just say no. And I wasn't surprised seeing Smith and Wesson on the ad for them on the, it wasn't their ad, but it was their station on that picture because Smith and Wesson was the first group firearms manufacturer that signed up under Bill Clinton when he was going after black guns and such in the 90s. And they were signing on supporting that stuff and sucking up thinking they'd get a front row seat and get some grace out of it. Of course, I wouldn't buy another Smith since.
Right.
So,
all right, guys.
Some thoughts.
If you like what you've heard, or didn't like exactly what you heard, but you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below. Send us some things that you guys have been seeing out there in the world. A lot of crazy things going on. Catch you guys on the next one.
Super fun.